Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Today, we are going to be talking about the unleashing of the three. Who are the three? Well, Cthulhu, Yogg Saron, and Azeroth. Now you might be thinking, didn't those guys war with each other? Are two of them not dead? How could this possibly die into the game? Well, all of that and more will be revealed in this video, which has been made possible by Skillshare. Sign up with my link and you will get 2 months for free. Yep, that's an extra free month on top of what you would normally get to, put that to use, learn a new skill, something you can actually use, and it also massively helps out the channel, but more about them later. So, the three, it's the collective name for the alliance between Cthulhu, Yogg Saron, and Azeroth. Before the arrival of the Titans, the old gods did indeed constantly war, but after the death of Y'Shaarj, that all changed. Stuff got real, they realized they needed to band together, but their alliance was not enough to stop the Titan Forge from imprisoning them in Anchorage, Ulduar, and wherever N'Zoth's mysterious prison might actually be. Now, they failed to defeat the Titan forces, and instead they decided to play the long game. And the term The Three comes from the War of the Ancients, which, come from the novels, so you might not have actually heard of it. Of the three, N'Zoth is the weakest, but he's a renowned schemer. Yogg Saron is the strongest, referring to himself as the god of death. That's why he was imprisoned in a massive facility with 6 keepers. And as for Cthulhu, well, he is associated with chaos and madness, but he's a little bit less defined than the other two in-game. Now, while 2 of them have been defeated, it seems like we merely destroyed their bodies, their avatars, their manifestations. Yogg Saron very much seems to be active in Legion, and there was a plot to bring Cthulhu back in the comics, so we can assume that at least one of these characters is not fully dead. But, of course, if only there was one old god left. The most manipulative of them all, who could nudge events towards freeing the whole lot of them. Currently, I suspect that 2 of the old gods are scheming, and I suspect that Cthulhu is dormant, but, well, I think recent events might actually change that. So, let's break this down one old god at a time. Yogg Saron was defeated in Wrath of the Lich King, but it almost seems like he planned on it. It's quite spooky. He tells us that
"You will learn, no king rules forever,"
and that even death itself can die. That's interesting because he does refer to himself as the god of death. Did he account for the defeat, therefore, of his physical manifestation? Later on, after defeating the Lich King, the spirit of Arthas' father tells him,
"No king rules forever, my son."
It's literally the same thing that Yogg Saron says.
"No king rules forever."
Let's delve deeper, though. During the fight with Yogg, we see 3 visions. We see one of Garona killing Lane, we see another of Neltharion, aka Deathwing, creating the Dragon Soul, and then finally we see one of Bolvar being tortured atop Icecrown Citadel. We know that Yogg Saron, or at least the 3, had a part to play in the creation of the Dragon Soul, and this suggests that the old gods maybe had, they had something to do with the events depicted in the other visions. Now, it has often been speculated that something's not quite right with Bolvar. Before defeating Arthas, he's chained up, but after defeating Arthas, he's magically came down and he's waiting for us. The game literally plays old god music that is from Ulduar. And as we keep on going here, I want to point something out from Blizzard. They have confirmed that there is a far greater connection between Yogg Saron and the Lich King than players think, and they actually said that they feel like they did a poor job of communicating this during the expansion itself. So a link pretty much is confirmed here. Now, why would we see a vision of Bolvar being tortured? Well, perhaps because there is something linking him and Yogg Saron. It could be that Bolvar is simply a broken man, and that Yogg Saron is able to perhaps influence him because of that. And, it is implied that there is a tension between the Lich King and Yogg Saron. Yogg seems to have set things up such that if we were able to defeat the Lich King, Bolvar, who perhaps he influences, is then set up to take the place of Arthas. Tyrion could probably resist the corruption much better than most, so Bolvar convincing Tyrion to walk away would play into Yogg's hand. Things like the spirits from Frostmourne and Arthas' father, they can be faked. Yogg Saron talks about souls quite a lot, saying that all places, all things have souls, and that all souls can be devoured. If Bolvar is under Yogg's influence, then some of the Legion events are actually worrying. The Lich King has us attempt to resurrect Tyrion. Later on, the Lich King starts talking about how the Helm of Domination has shown him many things. The player eventually finds an ancient dragon corpse that's surrounded by feral scourge. The Lich King tells the player that if they die, he will take command of the Ebonhold, and that he has plans for the Ebonhold. It really is all a bit spooky when you start to think about it. And I say all this knowing that Blizzard have confirmed that there's a connection between Yogg Saron and the Lich King, so some sort of scheme does seem quite possible. If Yogg Saron did end up with control of the undead through a puppet Lich King, then you know what? He would be pretty damn right in calling himself the God of Death. Finally, we then look at the Journal of Ogmot, which says this: bound by a throne? No, boundless. Could that be pointing to the Frozen Throne? Definitely an interesting question. Also, after merging with the Lich King, Arthas rebuilt Icecrown Citadel out of Saronite. That stuff's corrupting as hell, and it's pretty much everywhere. So, yeah, I really think there is quite a link between the two. And as for Yogg, well, he seems to be active in Ulduar. When we venture there with Khadgar and Magni, the area gets flooded with Saronite vapor, and both characters talk about hearing whispers. Yogg is somehow influencing events. Finally, do remember that much of our current plight is Yogg's fault. He created the Curse of Flesh, which has really opened so many Titan creations to being corrupted and manipulated. And then, of course, as we covered in my previous lore speculation video, Yogg is also quite connected to the Emerald Dream, though, of course, N'Zoth was the person who spread it, and with that, let's talk about N'Zoth. So, recently we covered how N'Zoth seems to have potentially had a hand in creating the most recent demon invasion, or at the very least, was able to position himself in order to exploit it. If that seems crazy to you, and I understand it really might, here are the key points. After the War of the Ancients, Fandrel's Staghelm planted Vordrasil. Its roots touched Yogg Saron's prison, and this led to the creation of the Emerald Nightmare. Yogg Saron then pretty much passed this over to N'Zoth. Now, N'Zoth, of course, had created the Naga after the War of the Ancients, and during the War of the Ancients, Xavius was absorbed into a tree, which sunk into the ocean. N'Zoth was able to recruit Xavius and make him the Lord of the Emerald Nightmare. Now, later on, Staghelm, who was still reeling from the loss of his son, planted Teldrassil. At some point, Xavius appeared to him in the form of his son and had him pacify Malfurion with Morrograin and graft a Nightmare branch onto Teldrassil. Later on in the novel Stormrage, Teldrassil and the Dream were mostly cleansed by Malfurion, though he was not able to cleanse the Rift of Allen, and while there, he reported sensing an ancient evil's presence, though that it actually originated deep below the ocean. So N'Zoth. Now in Stormrage we learned that the Rift of Allen has ties to the Twisting Nether and the Great Dark, and so by having control over it, the reach of N'Zoth is far greater than we may have previously thought. Now at the end of Warlords of Draenor we find a remnant of Chaos on Archimonde, and Malfurion recognizes the remnant as being the same evil as what he found in the Rift of Allen. So, N'Zoth. Now, Xavius originally served the Legion, so Archimonde and him meeting to preempt the recent invasion makes sense. And basically, I speculated that through this, N'Zoth was either able to gain information or perhaps even to manipulate Archimonde, the most blunt of the Legion leadership. Fast forward to the Emerald Nightmare raid. We win, we cleanse the Dream, but Xal'atath tells us that the rift is deep and vast. And later on we find the essence of corruption in a corner of the Dream. Since this part of the Dream isn't a reflection of Azeroth, and well, since Cenarius is standing on top of a big Titan-made thing, I suspect that this is the very heart of the Dream. Indeed, Cenarius even says literally, this is the very heart of the Dream. And right as this happens, Xal'atath tells us that the last prison has weakened. So, somehow what we did in the Emerald Nightmare has helped out N'Zoth. As for the rest of Legion, well, if N'Zoth is able to communicate with Xal'atath, then he would know what we've been up to, and he'd be able to react to unpredictable events, such as the events of Argus. Argus, of course, ends with Xal'atath telling us of a victory that went unnoticed. Well, if you think about it, Sargeras and the other Titans are now gone. They are the largest threat to the Old Gods, not us. After this, Xal'atath also absorbs the power of Sargeras' blade. And then in Battle for Azeroth, Teldrassil is burnt down. Remember that that tree is directly connected to N'Zoth and Yogg Saron, of course N'Zoth through the manipulation of Staghelm on his behalf. Then as for Ashara, who will be featuring, she's a bit more simple. She invades during Battle for Azeroth, she'll be a direct threat. When you look into what's going on in Kulturas, we find a noble family has disappeared under pretty damn suspicious circumstances, and we find another area, where there's people led by sea priests. From the art at BlizzCon, we know that there are very significant Old God influences, and even there's the Kultiran-themed armor that seems to have void tentacles going on all over it. So, when you think about it, N'Zoth has his direct plans with Queen Ashara. He then seems to have his corruption of quite a lot of Kulturas. He could potentially be involved with the Uldir raid, but we're not 100% sure on that. I don't want to get into Battle for Azeroth lore spoilers. We know that, of course, the seals of Uldir are gone save one. And then, of course, we need to think about the long-term implications of the essence of the void that is left over in the heart of the Emerald Dream, and what will happen with Xal'atath now that she has absorbed a portion of the power from Sargeras' blade. Remember that the power in this blade was so great that it would have killed Azeroth if we did not absorb it with our artifact weapons. So it's a hell of a lot of power, and that really is a good summary of just the spookiness of N'Zoth. Let's talk about Cthulhu. Cthulhu has been dormant since his defeat. He seems to be pretty dead. But, of course, later on then in Cataclysm we foil Cho'Gall's plan to resurrect him. But right now, Cthulhu's body is having a bubble bath in Azerite. That couldn't be good. And, the bits of the Old Gods we fight, they're tiny in comparison to the size of the Old God as a whole. So, really, Cthulhu's probably spread all underneath Silithus, and that whole area is just bleeding Azerite, and that's worrying. Next, though, I want to talk about Xal'atath. There's a potentially very worrying thing here. So, mainly, though, I do think she's working with N'Zoth. She's pretty much acting as his eye in the field. I mean, come on, look at the art. She's a literal eye, and this would allow her to relay events back to N'Zoth, such as the victory that went unnoticed after the defeat of Argus. Xal'atath, of course, then goes on to absorb a portion of the power in Sargeras' blade, and right now, that's pretty much all we know about her. But it could go a hell of a lot deeper. The Shadow Priest artifact research notes speculate that she could be what remains of a fifth Old God that was consumed by the others before the Titans arrived. And this does not conflict with Chronicle, because Chronicle states there were 4 active gods at the time that the Titans arrived, not that there only ever were 4 of them. So that is, I'd say, an active plot element that Blizzard really could do anything with. Let's sum all of this up, though. So in this video, we've covered how N'Zoth has many plots, and how none of them are good for us. We've covered how Blizzard have left open plot threads with Yogg Saron and tied just a lot of mystery into the Lich King, and they seem to be toying with us in the Lich King and Legion. We then have various prophecies of characters like Xal'atath and Il'gynoth, such as 5 keys to open the way, 5 torches to light our path. Of course, that's one of the most interesting, because the 5 keys and 5 torches may not be the same thing. They could be both the pillars of creation and something else. Given the connection between the 3 and the Emerald Dream and the burning of Teldrassil, it could actually be the 5 world trees. They could be the 5 torches to light their path. One thing is for sure, though. N'Zoth is plotting. Yogg Saron is plotting. And Cthulhu has a bubble bath of Titan blood. Given what we know about Battle for Azeroth, you know what? Things are getting pretty damn dark. And today's video was made possible by Skillshare. Skillshare are an online learning platform with over 18,000 courses covering video editing, cinematography, business, art, technology, so many things. What I particularly love, though, is the courses are designed to be bite-sized and actionable, so you jump in there, you actually learn a few bite-sized things, and you come out and you're actually able to apply them. I've recently been enjoying Jordy's courses on color grading and DSLR filmmaking, and my link will give you 2 months for free. So it really is risk-free and helps the channel out a hell of a lot as well. So, thank you very much for watching this video. It's always fun to don the imaginary tinfoil hat and talk about our tentacled friends. Do let me know what you think the Old Gods are up to in this expansion, though, and with that, I will see you in the next video.